Well, hello and thank you for joining me for another iTWire video with top international executives. Today with me I have on my left is Thompson. He's the president of Alsbridge. We can see the logo in the background there. And on my right I have Chip Wagner. He's the chief executive officer. Welcome, gentlemen, to the program.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it.
So I thought I'd just ask you just to start off by telling us a little bit about yourselves and what Alsbridge does in the global market.
Sure. Alsbridge is a recent entrant here to the Australia and New Zealand market. We're really delighted to be here, and we are a company that advises and is a niche management consulting firm in the spaces of outsourcing and offshoring, technology procurement, transformation, and areas like that. And we've been in business for 14 years.
Wow. And a little bit about yourself, Dieter.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having us today. Thompson, president of Alsbridge, been with Alsbridge since 2010. My background is in the network and telephony spaces, and today I manage our global delivery capability.
So you were saying you've just recently opened an office, and that was I think on March the 1st. So you're here to support that rollout and to meet some of your customers.
We are indeed. We'll be in Melbourne, we'll be here in Sydney, and we will be in Auckland over the course of the next couple of weeks. Very much excited about it.
We have a number of events with both clients and also the providers that we support as part of our transaction. So we're looking forward to being in the market and supporting our team.
Excellent, excellent. Now I understand that one of the reasons you're here today is to talk about robotic process automation. So the question is, what is robotic process automation? How does that differ from traditional automation technologies? And then for those who may not be aware, what are the traditional automation technologies that are in use today? And with RPA, which for Australians stands for Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. It's quite funny when I thought to think of it. But I mean, for you it's robotic process automation. So are there actually any robots involved? So there's 3 or 4 questions there, so we'll just go through them slowly.
Sure.
And, yeah.
Maybe I'll take the beginning of that one.
Sure, please.
There's definitely a lot of misconceptions on whether there is actual robots. The industry has used the term, I think, to help people get their head around what it is. The reality, what we're talking about, is a software-based cloud agent that replaces labor, but is not a robot that's moving around like you might see in the automation industry and in the automotive industry.
Sure, we have those giant arms that are welding things.
Exactly. These are software agents that are cognitive, but in the cloud.
And I mean, software agents are the future brains of robots that are walking around anyway. So I mean, we've got to start there. Otherwise, it'll just be dumb machines being remote controlled by a human.
Absolutely.
But so traditional automation technologies, which are presumably this, tell me about those.
Well, if you think about ERP systems, large SAP implementations, these are hundreds of millions of dollars. They take multiple years to put in place. They're huge programs. RPA is completely different. RPA is fast. It sits above the application, so it doesn't require a giant change management program with a huge IT prioritization to take place. Payoffs are in less than a year. Projects can be done in 8 weeks. Implications are fast, quality, definitely cost reduction, and the opportunity to take away some of the more mundane aspects of labor.
So are there any examples of companies, maybe not necessarily the brands, if you don't want to mention the specific company names, but sectors that have used this and some of the outcomes that they've enjoyed?
It's very ubiquitous across industries. Right now we're seeing healthcare, we're seeing insurance definitely taking advantage of that in their back office and all the manual processes that they need to support their businesses.
So imagine a construction engineering firm that has very complicated invoices. They might make 4,000 or 5,000 invoices in a month, and it could take 4 to 5 hours to assemble an individual invoice because it requires 10 to 12 pieces of information from disparate systems that have to be gotten in what we like to call the swivel chair environment, where you have 3 screens in front of you and swiveling back and forth and collecting this piece and appending it onto the invoice and so forth. So we went in and in 2 weeks' time, we took a look at that process, and we took a 4 to 5 hour per invoice construction process to 11 minutes.
Wow, that's a huge saving.
Indeed, and had huge cash flow implications because these are very large invoices. So $1.5 million worth of labor was automated with $15,000 worth of robots. And the entire project was 8 weeks in implementation.
And again, these robots were pieces of code,
software agents.
Yeah.
We just call them robots because the human person likes to fear things.
Sure.
And the beauty in that example is those people are able to be deployed to other jobs in the company where they will do more productive work than just processing invoices.
Absolutely.
Well, there's another really good example, and Dieter brought up the healthcare industry. If you think about the payer world, and I'll use the Blue Cross and Blue Shield entity. I won't say what state in the United States. But 60% of their claims examiners spend their time trying to decide if elements of the claim are duplicate. Think about a broken leg, right? We have to have our leg x-rayed multiple times, first to determine that it's broken, then to determine how to set it. Once it's set, to make sure we've set it properly, all of those things. And those each have cost in them. And part of the claim administration process is, did I get billed once or twice? Those elements are fairly mundane and kind of dry work.
Yeah.
We were able to see the complete elimination of that part of the claims administration process. So 40% of the day for the average claims examiner can be spent on the things that require human logic and much more cerebral processing and thinking about what's happening. And the 60% was eliminated and reduced down to very, very fast speeds. And it saved the hiring of 300 additional claims examiners. So for the business, it didn't mean anyone was displaced, that they got to do more important, more interesting work, and they saved having to hire 300 more people. And that's the kind of thing we're going to see with RPA.
And it lowers cost for the traditionally very high cost of healthcare in the US. I mean, that would have been a big saving for them. They would have been very
dramatically
happy.
Lowers the cost, because a common, one software agent will replace multiple net FTEs of work and does the work at zero error rate, right? Extraordinary speed. The average robot actually doesn't fall out with his coworker.
No, he doesn't take toilet breaks.
No,
or smokers.
Vacation. They don't get sick.
That's it. Yeah.
So it's really it's going to happen. It's going to happen everywhere. It's just a matter of how fast.
So it sounds like
the thing, Alex, is it's very auditable. So every keystroke is then captured. So if you go back for any type of third-party audit, you now have that always in storage of what exactly happened. So that's another benefit from RPA and automation.
And clearly it's very fast to search that information as well. You haven't got to listen through days worth of phone records, voice recordings. It's all computerized, so you can just search for that particular thing and find it and deal with it.
Today there's no way to capture the keystrokes that an individual person had done on an application.
Well, not from their house, no, but
Or from anywhere, really.
Yeah.
And then from a security point of view, you can actually have the agent change its password every 30 seconds if you wanted to.
Sure.
Versus one person who changes theirs once a year.
Yeah.
So much more secure.
So it sounds like the whole RPA process is vastly more mature in the US than it is in the rest of the world, and that's one of the reasons why you're coming to Australia, New Zealand, and Asia.
Well, interesting. The pioneers in the software space in this arena are really coming out of Europe, not coming out of the United States, mostly out of the UK.
Okay.
So I think you'll see the maturity in the U.S. the same we're seeing in the U.K. and in Europe. I think it is a newer technology in the ANZ market.
Sure. And obviously you mentioned there's the cost benefit reduction, there's so much labor and work. Are there any other benefits you want to quickly go over that you haven't already?
Well, I think speed and quality to get, and the cost reduction is great, but it has the ability to enhance the average white-collar worker's job content. Sanity.
Yeah, I mean, data entry errors are legion. And if you're doing the same thing, it's like RPA, repetitive process automation, with a human. They get the what is it? The
carpal tunnel.
Yeah, well, I would call it something else in Australia, but that too. So you can get. So what are some of the pitfalls that people encounter putting these systems together, and what are the keys to success that you advise? And also, what about security issues? Everything's hackable. People trying to hack into anything and everything. Are people they must be trying to hack into these processes too, and I don't know, change results or cause mischief?
Well, on the pitfall side, it's interesting. One of the things we hear from our clients is that our process today is not very efficient. It's broken. I need to remap my process before I can automate it. In fact, that's the wrong direction to go. What we can do is actually map the current process, increase the speed and the productivity of that process, and then once it's mapped, it makes it much easier for the evolution of process improvement. So that is an area. The other area to watch out for is change management, which we think Alsbridge is pioneering. Because of all the work we've done in offshoring, you still have a retained organization and have to go through a change management, which is a little different if you're offshoring to, say, a pure play in India than a robotics-based cloud automation play, but there's still change management required. So making sure you look holistically at your organization and then moving on to the application immediately. The other thing that is confusing to people that we find a lot, this is not an integration to the application. It sits on top of the application. There is no change to your application. In fact, the application doesn't know whether there's a worker doing it or the robot's doing it. It's exactly the same. That's the reason, as Chip said, you can deploy this in 8 to 10 weeks and is not very intrusive to your ERP systems or any other systems in your process.
And from the hacking point of view, Chip,
security is the issue for everyone right now. You look at some of the most amazing multiples for new companies and companies getting gobbled up in the M&A space. It's all about cybersecurity. That's going to be an issue here. It's going to be an issue as the Internet of Things explodes onto the scene, because in the same way that Target was hacked, they were hacked through their HVAC system.
Which is, for those who are unaware, it's their heating and cooling system.
Ventilation, air conditioning system. And who would have thought that that's the way into Target's network? And so imagine the Internet of Things when suddenly your thermostat and the locks on your door and go right down the ability to control many of the things in your house becomes a target of enormous proportions. And imagine that here as well with anything that's roboticized. When you bring a computer into the picture, it's hackable.
And so obviously, it's been a heavy focus for your programmers to make sure that your RPA systems are robust and hardened against the bad guys.
I think one of the things important is we are not a programming company, so we are not creating the agents. We're a consultancy, so we help clients assess whether robotics makes sense in their process, what is the right agent to deploy, and then the configuration of those services and deployment of the RPA, and then the lifecycle management of the software agent.
Sure.
We are not actually the software programmer.
Okay,
but
that makes sense.
is very important.
Well, it'd be one of the, as we were saying, one of the things everyone's got to tick off and not just tick off, but really understand.
And if you think about it, the robot or the agent, now because everything is done is auditable, it is much more easy to audit for security issues than an individual who might be rogue in their application. Sure. So I think it actually brings
wanting to cover something up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So obviously, market maturity today is, compared to 6-12 months ago, in Australia, it's probably still immature. It's much more mature in the US. But where do you think we'll be 6 to 12 months from now, and then maybe in a decade from now, which is looking into the crystal ball?
This entire RPA world is a continuum.
Yeah.
At the bottom level, we've been talking about RPA. That's kind of at the base level. We have structured data, repetitive processes that can be mimicked by a software agent.
Yeah.
And then we start to go up the scale. We get into some more technology with cognitive capability, where the robot is able to infer certain things and build hypotheses, test those hypotheses.
And make decisions.
At the rudimentary level.
Yeah.
And then we move further up the cognitive role, we get into artificial intelligence, and then eventually we find ourselves reaching things like the IBM Watson program.
The singularity.
And singularity down.
Ray Kurzweil.
There you go. Now, if you want to go 5 generations,
That's
and our grandchildren and maybe our great-grandchildren will contend with singularity, perhaps, to the point where that becomes more of a possible challenge to humanity in some way. We're not there. We're not there
thankfully,
for probably
not yet.
some time. Yeah. But I believe that an IBM Watson type of capability at some point may find the answer to cancer.
Sure.
Because there they have the ability to work with unstructured data and take all unlimited information feed and play with that information and manipulate it and make hypotheses and test them at blinding speed. And someday we'll have a breakthrough, cancer, AIDS, some of the the world's greatest problems may be solved.
And IBM is trying to get Watson used in more and more areas, not just winning Jeopardy, but
right now in healthcare.
Yeah.
Interesting though, one of the confusing is Watson couldn't process an invoice,
right?
And it's $10 million on an instant. A Blue Prism automation agent for $15,000 can process but can't solve cancer. So they're very, very different things on the cognitive scale.
Absolutely.
Our focus is primarily on the structured data side of business processes versus looking at instances of Watson to cure diseases and solve the world's problems.
Any other key trends we haven't already discussed?
I think one of the things you asked is where is it on his lifestyle continuum, and we ask my clients a lot, is this Star Wars stuff, is this? But no, it's real, it's being deployed today, it is rapidly coming into environments, it is a proven technology, it's going to get better every year like they do, but this is something that you should have an RPA strategy in any business that you're in today.
From you?
Well, I think the thing is, if you don't have an RPA strategy and your competition does, you are massively behind your competition. The dollars that can fall out of this, the improvement you can make to the quality of life for your workers is extraordinary. If you've outsourced something, this may be the path to repatriation. If you're thinking about outsourcing, you're under pressure to outsource something. This, in theory, could be the antidote to outsourcing, because you could explode the business case for outsourcing this by automating the function. So, the old answer was, let's just go outsource that. We'll send that to India. We'll send that to the Philippines. We'll send it to Eastern Europe. We'll take 40% of the cost out. Your mess for less. That is not necessarily the case any longer. You may still choose to outsource. There could still be a business case, but why not automate it first? take out the low-hanging fruit. There's no reason to let that low-hanging fruit be the margin of the outsourcing firm.
Absolutely.
And we're very fond of the outsourcing industry. It was one of the things that caused us to be born. And so we help clients think that through.
Things have moved. The technology's advanced, and now you can do a lot of this through software.
Well, it's a three-dimensional chess game now.
Yeah.
I mean, in the old days, it was a pretty straightforward game. It was more like checkers, not chess. It was very sort of, if I do this, very black, very white. Now all shades of gray have come into the mix, and we're now playing on 3 dimensions. That's why it's such a fascinating technological disruption.
It's like that famous saying where you're playing chess and your competitors are playing checkers.
Right. And the thing to remember, this is not an either-or game. Offshore and labor arbitrage or RPA, it's a combination of those technologies for your environment, and that's the value prop that we bring to our clients, is evaluating all of them and bringing together a comprehensive solution for their environment.
Now, we spoke a bit about the benefits to workers in terms of their sanity and being able to do more creative or interesting pursuits within the companies, but what are the other social implications for everybody's jobs? What is the landscape of labour over time that you'll see evolving?
Well, again, thinking back to the analogy of the automotive industry, there was a time when some of our great-grandparents or even grandparents might have done fairly manual labor. They may have turned certain bolts, they may have welded, they might have been involved in the painting of a vehicle. Not exactly the most scintillating type of work, and that is mostly now done in an automated fashion. But the job now coming out of college might be to manage, control, and program the automation. Much higher content, much higher pay. So that's what I think we'll see that the labor will evolve, that which is not automated will evolve to more interesting, better paying, and more cerebrally challenging.
And to add to that, more service-based industries. So if you're looking where you want to go, service-based industries to support the autonomics is really the direction.
Now, just to change gears, just before we finish the interview, I always like to ask my interview subjects if you could please share the best advice you've ever received to help you get where you are today.
I'll take that one first. I think it's to always remember to focus on the client and the delivery, whether you're using a robot or offshoring or internal resources and all the shiny things that can distract you from your day in, day out business. Remember the quality delivery and the quality that you take care of your customer. Everything else is to serve that purpose.
And Chip?
Well, I remember receiving a book one time. It's about a temperature in Fahrenheit, but it's applicable to centigrade as well. 212 degrees, the extra degree. And the premise of the book is that 1 degree of extra effort at 211 degrees will create boiling water that will create steam and will drive a locomotive engine.
Right.
And so the difference in the world, and I really think this is true on a compassionate human interaction basis and on a work career development basis and on a customer service basis, is give that extra degree every day, every single day. It doesn't take much to have 1 extra degree of effort every day. But in the space of 5 years, if you study a subject for 1 hour, it doesn't matter what the subject is, you are a global expert in the subject. And so just that 1 degree of extra effort every day.
That's great advice from you both. So do you have any final messages for iTWire viewers and readers and for your current and future customers?
Well, we're just so pleased to be in this marketplace, and we've come here not because it's just a fascinating market and a fascinating place to visit. We've come here because we believe the market is underserved by its current providers. And while there are some in our competitive set that do some of the things we do, there is no one that does all of the things that we do. And we believe that the combination of things like exciting new robotic process automation mixed with our traditional services offers a unique way for people to defeat business problems. And we hope to exercise that here in Sydney, in Auckland, and in Melbourne.
Sure. And Dieter?
Excellent. No, thank you for having us, and we're looking forward to being in the market.
Okay, well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Best of luck, and talk to you again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.